OCD about cleaning my glasses.
Are we good, Heather?
All set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So with that, we'll start the November 1st zoning board of appeals meeting at 7:01. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Brian.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll do a roll call. Robert Peckham, present. Beth Mossworth.
Here.
John Migliorini.
Here.
Christian Chamberlain.
Here.
Heather Robinson.
Here.
Tim Harrington.
Present.
Aaron Lehman.
Present.
With that, can I get a motion for the acceptance of the October board minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I give a motion to approve the October meeting minutes.
Oh, seconded by Beth. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Quick explanation for the audience on what happens here, just a couple of moments and some emergency exits. So we have emergency exits across the atrium and on either side of the boardroom, probably where you came in towards the parking lot. If anything should happen to date, we've never had to deal with that, which is good. We're going to call applications up here. We'll ask you to stand at the podium. When you get called up, please state your name and address clearly for the record into the microphone. It's important for all of us. If you're online, please make sure you unmute and speak clearly online. We're going to ask a handful of questions. Probably a lot of them will sound repetitive because we have a lot of similar applications today. These questions are important to us to understand what's happening and make a decision. A lot of these, again, are pretty straightforward for us. We see them often. So we'll ask similar questions and then we'll make a motion and we'll have a vote. Assuming it passes, you'll end up getting a letter from the town in a handful of days, and you'll have to finish the process through the building department to get your permit. If it doesn't pass, then other things have to be accomplished and dealt with. So that's sort of the way that works. Obviously, we'll answer questions if you have any, but I'm just trying to give you a little heads up. Our schedule starts out with a T-Mobile application 2023-080. But in the interest of time for all the people here, I'm actually going to put that to the end. So we're going to start at 2023-093, which is for the address of 671 and 673 Erie Station Road. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello. My name is Jane Knowlton. I purchased 673-671 Erie Station Road on November 13th of 2020. At that time, the income property as an investment was listed as one unit. It's a duplex with 4 rooms, being the gross living area of 1,116 square feet. Unit 2 was listed as 5 rooms, 1,424 square feet. I have documentation of that if you'd like to look at it. The garage was converted on 671 side into a family room as listed on the bank's assessment of the property at that time. So I assumed that that was true. The real estate listing had the garage for the property as 1.0 attached. I had new tenants, Tom Seesock and his wife. They noticed on the north wall of Unit 2 to be very drafty. And when they looked into that, they could see rodent damage. So looking into that and assuming as the landlord, I'm responsible for their safety and comfort. On August of 2023, I engaged a contractor to convert the non-used outside external garage door into a window that would allow more light into the room and remediate the draft and the rodent access. that work was stopped by Raymond, who stopped by and saw that we were doing the work and asked if I had a permit. And I'm like, permit? So we filed a notice of violation, which you have records of, and the permit, which you have records of. And now I'm here to request that we continue the work.
So a couple of questions. So I also looked up the ad listing on redfin.com. And I saw some photos of actually what it looked like before you had begun the renovations. So the garage door was there, like it was on the other side of the house.
Yeah.
So I saw that picture, and also I did see a photo that was taken in the converted garage as well. So I saw what it looked like back then.
Okay,
Before you purchased the property.
yes, yeah,
Now Redfin did say that it was listed as a 2-car garage, one on each side. I
the
don't know if
listing that you saw.
the listing I saw said
Oh.
two cars, but either way,
Either-
now, did you, when you purchased the property, did you purchase it sight unseen? Do you think?
No,
Did
no,
you-
no,
you actually saw it?
I observed it. I saw it.
Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
so you knew it was a garage. Okay, so I just didn't know if it was something that, okay. So,
Yes,
basically, I already read through your testimony and everything, so I know, that it was converted a long time ago over to our living space. Is there,
most likely 40 years. We found something in the wall,
Okay.
70 feet.
all right. I don't have any other questions. Actually.
I do. So when you bought it, was there still a garage door there?
Yes,
Okay, that's what I thought, because I've driven by this 1,000 times. And I thought there was a garage door. So it's not a surprise that it was a garage at one point. You just bought it as it was one time a garage, and again, now being used as a living space.
for over 40 years. Yeah. And I asked the previous owner, why didn't they take the garage door down? And she said, well, it was for symmetry, so that they both matched out when you're looking at it.
It probably
Okay.
cost too and other things.
Well, I'm naive, yes.
If you were
Yes.
to, I also read your testimony and I saw the different cost assessments. If this were to get denied, and I'm not implying it will or won't, but the question is, what was that extra cost for that you had mentioned in your testimony? One was, I don't know, I don't remember, 10,000, one was 30,000.
Okay, so a gross estimate is $10,000 to remediate, converting that wall of an unused garage door into a solid garage door that has a solid foundation and a window.
So it will still be a garage door.
No, that'll be removed and there's a window.
So to remove the garage door and convert it and bring it up to code on.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, could we just have your name and address?
Oh,
for
yeah,
the
I'm
record,
sorry.
please?
Thomas Cisak. I'm the tenant. Thank
Can I
you. She
bring your
mentioned that
picture?
earlier.
If you bring it to us, we can't give it back.
Okay.
Yes, you're welcome to. Oh. Yes,
It's tied back, yeah.
yeah.
No, I mean
And hold a minute for the comments because I want you to be on the microphone. No problem, just I want you to. These are all the same, right? Looks nice.
I do have a question I thought of is, how much have you spent so far in getting it to this point, given this picture? As far as renovating the wall,
It's done. Minus the siding.
well, my society.
So I'm obligated to the contractor for 6,400. However, work was stopped before that was completed.
Mhm.
So I paid an installment of 3,900. No, that's the balance on completion.
Okay.
I deposited 2,500. Yeah.
You're about half.
Right, so you've been,
Yeah.
well, you spent about 6,500 and
Right.
a little bit more to finish it off.
Well,
once-
plus-
if that's-
Plus you had to settle up for the waiting. So I think you got about 4,000 into this. pretty close to that.
That's, I don't think he added on 4,000.
So about 4,000 is what you're in right now.
Yes,
Well,
Okay,
pl-
so-
plus the 2,000 for moving the gas meter. Because the gas meter was inside, and we submitted the pictures showing the gas meter was in a little cubby hole. And in order to read the gas meter, you had to open up that panel in the front. You had to take out a piece of foam that they had was like 4 inches by whatever that size was, but it's 4 inches thick. You had to pull out the foam and you had to read the meter. And then you had to put everything back in place. So it's very, you had to download to do it. Well, upon doing a meter reading one time, we pulled it out and it was just full of feces on the roads and that. And you could see where they were nesting in it. And they were nesting in that area. And that's when I brought the attention to her,
Okay.
that something needed to be done. And there were also 2 electric heaters in the room.
So in other words, there had to be changes for infestation and for code changes.
Yes,
Which
yes.
is, yeah.
Okay.
So the heater, the one heater did not work. So I told her I would look into it. I removed the one heater to look at it, and we found the wires had been eaten from the rollers
Sure.
in the wall. So I tore out the heater as a safety feature.
Okay.
And then we said, we need to do something about this.
So going back to this question that I was asking a minute ago, if we didn't approve this, what is the backup plan? So you had 2 prices that you told us about, and I'm not asking for specifics of the price.
so,
It was
so
2,000 to remove the gas heater.
Got it.
So-
But there was 2 prices that you gave us on the testimony. And one of them was about $10,000. One of them was about 30. What is the $30,000 option?
building another garage,
Separate garage, extra
Correct.
garage,
correct.
not using this as a garage, building on
Correct.
a garage. Okay,
So I have enough money into this living room that I'd like to complete the work for the $10,000. If you don't approve it, then I have the additional burden of a $30,000 separate garage.
and that would fit too? That is something that would fit on the property? Is there enough space if that was something we needed?
We
It-
believe that.
Well, there's a stream that between my property and the school.
Yep.
So it would likely fit and maybe leave 5 feet
Okay.
It's close.
to the
Well,
stream.
there's 35 feet
So there's,
Oh, there you go.
now.
Right.
Yeah.
So 30,
so,
how much for the garage?
There's 35 feet from, a little over 35 feet
So
from the
there's no
property
problem with
line
the
to the
space.
corner of the house now.
and another question that came up, and I'm just gonna pause this because we are taking quite a bit of time on it. Another question that came up here on the board side is, where do you put everything? Like, there's no garage, you know, one of the reasons for a garage is to have storage space and to have a vehicle. Where do you put everything? And what things go outside that are,
So we have 2 vehicles and a motorcycle. I keep I have a trailer that's 6x10.
uh-huh,
I keep my motorcycle in that. In the off season, I store it at the Moose.
Yep.
The Moose, and that's where I store it. You know, my motorcycle stored there. But with the 1-car garage, it ends up being storage space, like you said. She has the shed out back, and we share that. And put my tools or whatever in there. But also there is a room out back that in the basement. So one of the reasons why we rented the space was because we enjoyed the family room, the extra living space,
Sure.
not the storage space. We just we had a house on Jefferson Road. We downsized, we sold our property. And we were looking for something a little smaller, but yet
But
too
the-
small.
I respectfully say though, the question actually has to go to the homeowner because as a tenant, it's not common that you're coming in and asking for an application like this. This is a homeowner situation. So the question is, if she couldn't make this into a living space, if it was not allowed to be a living space, you wouldn't stay there as a tenant
Yeah.
potentially.
So it just wouldn't be big enough for us and our needs. I
Sure,
would rather have the living space than the garage space.
got it. Are there other questions from the board? I think in my opinion, we have a reasonable understanding of what's happening here. Do we need to take a straw man? Do we feel this is gonna pass or?
I feel good with it now because
Okay. No, Tim, you said okay? Okay, okay. Okay, so with that, we can close this application. Who has this one?
I
Kristen,
do.
you can close the application.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say I'm all for this just because of the danger of the gas meter being inside living space with faulty wiring. So,
I
No,
couldn't
the-
appreciate
the
that.
Gas meter is being moved.
right,
We know.
that's what I'm saying.
That's what
I
he's agreeing.
appreciate
Right,
that
that's
this movement being moved outside where it
The
belongs.
cost of
No, that
$2,000.
is being
Yeah.
addressed properly at this point, so that
Yes,
you're,
yeah.
you're,
Yes, that's what we're trying to do. is just
you're
bring
being a
everything up
good,
to code.
tenant. So,
Let's close this
yes,
application.
close it, exactly. Yes. Mr. Chairman, with regard to application ZBA 2023-093 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has, 1, duly advertised and held a public hearing, 2, has considered all relevant information, and 3, has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variances. Now therefore be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. There will still be a one-car garage on the property for the tenants living on the other half of the duplex. And the neighborhood has an existing variety of garage configurations. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. To turn the space back into a garage would be cost prohibitive and reduce the quality of living for the tenants. Adding a garage is also cost prohibitive, according to the applicant, costing around $30,000. The variance is not substantial in consideration of prior homeowner conversion of a garage space to living space 40 years ago, the desires of the current owner and tenants, and benefit to the area, and granting of the variance would be the least substantial method to result in the most positive change. The variance will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions, as the variance pertains to structural changes without a change in footprint of the building, and no environmental implications are anticipated. Physical impact is the change from the old non-functioning garage door to a finished wall with 2 windows. The difficulty relating to the variance was self-created. The applicant purchased the home in 2020 with the understanding of the home was as pictured and described by the seller and real estate agent. The garage had been converted 40 years prior by the previous owner. Be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the zoning board of appeals hereby approves the variance as presented.
All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Second, anybody?
I'll second.
Seconded by Tim. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Heather opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your complete notes as well on answering the questions. They were very helpful.
Oh, thank you. We had 2 months to prepare.
Next, we're gonna do 2023-094, which is at 77 Strawberry Hill. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mary Jo Brenner and I live at 77 Strawberry Hill. And I'm requesting a variance to the front setback so I can rebuild my front stairs to my home.
Can you explain why you're rebuilding in the porch, John?
Yeah, they, based on the age of them, funny thing sort of happened is UPS delivered a package. And when I opened the door, it sort of caught on one of the boards of the step and it actually separated the front steps.
Oh, wow.
Everything was just disintegrated. There was nothing. I wouldn't have been able to try to repair it without replacing all the underlying structure. So for safety purposes, I just tore it right down. And then I applied for the permit, started to build it, and then found out that originally a variance was never obtained by the prior owner.
Got it.
Okay.
This is pretty straightforward. I mean, you're replacing a set of steps. Is there anybody that has any questions on the board? No? That was an easy one for you. Any questions from members of the audience? Nope. So with that, we can close this application. Pretty straightforward.
Sweet.
I just have 1 second because it erased.
Yes. We
Sorry.
need a moment. We had a little technical problem with our tablets today, so
Okay,
no problem, just a small delay.
understood.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, with regard to application number ZBA 2023 1 or 094 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held a public hearing, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variance. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. It will be an improvement. It'll be an improvement and add curb appeal to the home. And the neighbor has one almost identical. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. This is the only feasible way to have a safe entry. The variance requested is not substantial. It is a small relief. The variance will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions. The difficulty relating to the variance was not self-created as the existing porch was deteriorated. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the zoning board of appeals hereby approve the variance as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I'll
Seconded by Beth. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Next is 2023-095 for Central Bark. Heather, is there one online?
Yep, I am here. I'm just turning my video on. Here we go.
There you go. Hello.
Hello, how are you doing tonight?
Good. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Phil Clark. Our address is 65 Saginaw Drive.
Welcome.
Mr. Clark, can you tell us what is the business and why you think you need 3 signs, please?
Yeah, so the business is a doggy daycare facility. And we're getting 3 signs because when you look at the building straight on, you will see a sign to the left of the front door and to what we're also going to do to the right of the front door. But most of the parking is on the side. So we are going to be having a sign there as well for when customers walk in.
So I spoke to Jim. He said one of the signs, the circular one, will be illuminated. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And 24 hours a day, flashing, or just a static backlight?
I think just the static backlight. I'd have to double check that, but static backlight.
Okay. No other questions?
Is there any difficulty seeing the front sign from the road?
No, I don't think so.
The reason I asked, although I'm not necessarily opposed to this, but you mentioned the third sign is for the people that are in the parking lot.
Yeah, so when the customers get out of their car, they will see that. I just thought it would give it the business a little bit more professionalism and look okay. I don't think there's anything harm in it.
You don't anticipate that when they're in the parking lot, they're gonna have troubles finding it though. Do you I lost my train of thought. I'll pass it off to anyone else who has a question.
This sign for the parking lot side, the entrance is in the front, correct?
Right.
Okay, so there's no directional as part of the sign, it's just the name of the business again.
Correct.
Okay, and does the parking lot face any other road or just the parking lot?
Just the parking lot.
Are there any more questions from the board? Okay. And just for clarity, the other thing is that this is right next to the oil change. Which one is that? I don't even know. So there's really no access to the side of this. All right. No more questions from the board? Any questions from members of the audience? Okay. Are we good with this or?
Miss-
any concerns? Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, with regard to application number ZBA 2023-095 for area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held a public hearing, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variance. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. This small street is commercial. The proposed signage changes will fit the character of the neighborhood. The variance can be achieved by some other feasible alternative, but the business chose a tasteful way to increase signage. The variance request is not substantial as the size of the signs are modest. The variance will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions. They are just wall signs. The difficulty related to the variance was self-created. This increase in signage request will satisfy the need to increase awareness of Central Park. And be it further resolved, based on the above findings, the zoning board of appeals hereby approve the variance as presented.
I'll second.
Seconded by John. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That's opposed. Motion carries. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now we have 2023-096 and 097. Timothy Johnson at 73 Campfire Road. Welcome, sir. How are you today?
Board,
How you doing today?
pretty good. Timothy Johnson, 73 Campfire Road North, Henrietta, New York, 14467.
Thank you, sir.
I have one question regarding your application.
Yes,
You had mentioned that the driveway was already cut out that way. What does the cutout way mean?
what was already cut out meaning that the way it is now, it was already like that when I moved in.
Oh,
So I didn't know that they didn't get a permit or had to have a variance to replace the driveway. So when I had Bedford Paving came to get a permit. And so when they came down, they said that I had to get a variance for the side of the garage and back out towards the street.
okay. And on, what is the, the 16-foot, what do you store there, park there?
My truck, trailer,
Okay. Okay.
And just to repeat what I believe I just heard you say, you're basically just repaving what's there.
yeah.
You're not
It was
intending
already
to-
there. It's just, right now, it's just dirt and gravel
Right.
that's there. So,
You want to make it look,
So you
yeah, I
want
want to get all the gravel dug up. I want to put the right stuff down there. And then I want to pave it. Because if you look at it, it's the probably worst driveway on the street.
okay,
So.
So
yeah, I
you're
wanna just
gonna,
bring it up to code and
so you want to pave the driveway and the extension?
yes,
The extension, you can only park the trailer there, correct?
yes.
Kevin?
Kevin, can you hear?
Are you referring to the,
They can,
The
next to the
extension.
garage?
Yeah, next to the garage. Okay, so like a trailer.
a boat.
Okay,
So that's what the rules are for this side.
just wanted
Yeah.
to make that clear. so-
Yeah, yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
With that, are there any more questions from the board? Any questions from members of the audience here or on Zoom? Okay, with that, we can close the application.
Okay.
Plural, two of them. Aaron, it's you, right? I just want to be sure. Yes.
My tablet was being very slow.
Yeah, all of us.
Mr. Chairman, with regard to application number ZBA 2023-096 and 097 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held a public hearing, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variances. Now therefore be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. The proposed driveway footprint has been in place and does not create an undesirable change to the neighborhood. Driveway surfaces will be improved with the variance. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. The variance cannot be achieved by a feasible alternative that would provide the desired use of the driveway. The variance is requested is not substantial. The variance is not substantial in that it achieves the required setbacks in excess of space from the property line. The variances will not have a negative effect on the physical or environmental conditions. The variance is not seen to have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions at this time. The difficulty relating to the variances was self-created. The difficulty was self-created by a previous owner. And be it further resolved that based on the above findings, the zoning board of appeals hereby approve this variances as presented.
I'll second.
Second by Heather. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
All
good
right,
evening.
you have a good-
Next we have 2023-098. That's 144 Faircrest Road. Welcome. Good evening.
My name is Jason Arthman. I live at 144 Faircrest Road.
Thank you.
As you indicated on your application, your mother-in-law broke her hip.
Her leg, actually.
Oh,
Well,
leg, I'm sorry.
knee. So we've lived in the house since 2012. There's always just two concrete steps in front of it. My mother-in-law moved in with us last year. She fell off the steps once last year and minor. So she just decided to get a cane at that point because I was looking at building something because there's no railing. So I was looking at building something back then, and she said she would just get a cane, not to worry about it. But then it happened again earlier this year. At that point, she broke her, I can't remember if it was the knee or just above the knee. So at that point, I decided to rectify the situation in some manner. So dating back to 2020, we tried to get a permit for a garage. And at that point, we learned that anything equal to or in front of our house required a variance because it's exactly 60 or 59 feet 9 inches from the right of way. So I was looking for ways to do it faster rather than having to go through a variance. So I was under the impression that freestanding decks didn't require permits, which apparently I was wrong about that. So yeah, live and learn, I guess. So I built it as a freestanding deck, and then I got a notice that I needed a permit. So at that point, I had to put in the permit and then go through the request for the variance.
And then, since the deck is in use currently, does your mother-in-law feel safer walking out?
Yep, she hasn't had any issues until this morning. It was a little bit icy. So actually, I slipped on a little bit when I went out there. So I'm gonna get a little indoor-outdoor rug to try and help with that a little bit. But she hasn't had any issues since then because even though it's under 36 inches, it's only like 21 inches, I believe. I did put a railing on both sides of the steps just because that was the main purpose for it. And additionally, we also have 6 and 8-year-old kids that like to ride bikes out front. So that's why I went with a deck rather than just doing two steps with a railing, because it allows me and my wife to sit out front and keep an eye on them a little bit easier.
Sure. Great. Do you have any other questions? Any questions from other board members? Any questions from members of the audience? Okay, with that, we can close this application.
Mr. Chairman, in regards to application ZBA 2023-098 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has 1, duly advertised and held a public hearing, 2, is considered all relevant information, and 3, is considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variances. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties. Several homes in the area have similar porches. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. The safe entry into the home and exit is needed and is the best possible way. The variance is not substantial. The 9-foot variance blends well and is not overly visible for difference. The variance will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions. The difficulty relating to the variance was self-created, and be it further resolved that based above the above findings, the zoning board of appeals hereby approve the variance as presented.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Christian. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Have a good evening. Next, we have 2023-100 at 1634 Jefferson Road.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Patrick Diogardi, and I live at 1634 Jefferson Road.
Like you've sort of heard before, I'll ask the question, why are you making this request?
I'm making the request for the variance to change the setback to 57 feet instead of 60 because I need to replace the front steps. Currently, it's a concrete pad that it's falling apart. It's chipped. It's cracked. It's really slick when wet. So winter's coming. I'm a little nervous about that. But it's also, not only is it unsafe, it doesn't look very good.
Right.
So, but I'm worried about when people visit, especially my grandparents, their safety entering the home.
Makes sense. You sort of heard a common theme tonight. It seems like this is pretty that time of year. This makes sense to me. I looked at it already. I saw what the steps look like and what you're going to, I assume what you're going to be putting in is pretty straightforward. Is there anything special about it we should know? What's coming? What's being installed?
So I'm going to put in vinyl like Trex deck.
Yep.
It's going to, so right now the slab is like just a bit wider than the door itself, going to extend it like 3 feet on each side. That's really the only main difference.
That'll fulfill your needs. You'll have space to open the doors, drop packages, stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from other board members? No. Any questions from members of the audience? Okay, with that, we can close this application. So with regards to application number ZBA 2023-100 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held public hearing, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefit of the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variances. Now therefore be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties. The change will have a clean look and add beauty to the neighborhood. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. This request cannot reasonably achieved in any different way. The variance requested is not substantial at only 3 feet. It's still considered small. And the variance will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions. This small variance will have no physical or environmental effects. The variance also allows for increased safety. The difficulty relating to the variance was not self-created. Time has eroded the porch and the fix is appropriate. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the zoning board of appeals hereby approve the variance as presented.
I'll second.
Heather seconded. With all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good day. Let me put this up here. Next, we have 2023-101, which is 188 Quinn Road.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
My name is Dan Leone. I am representing Kathy Flynn. She's at 188 Quinn Road. I work for Quality Homes of Rochester. I'm actually her contractor. We are looking to change the setback, very similar to the gentleman before me. She has a current 9 foot wide by 4 foot deep concrete and block landing to get up to her front door, and she is looking to take that out. It is degraded significantly. It's the original landing and steps from when the house was built in the 60s. So we put in the permit for the upgraded landing and steps, and then we found out through that process that we actually needed a variance. Yeah, I guess it was my understanding. I talked to, is it Chris Montagna in the?
Yes.
Yeah, and Chris let me know that those houses in that neighborhood were all essentially the front of the house was all built right on the setback.
Yep.
So she wanted we're bumping it out just a little bit further, 8 feet instead of the current 4 feet. That way she can come straight from the driveway directly up the existing concrete walkway and up the steps instead of having to come down and turn and go up. So it's utilizing the current walkway as well. But it's very much in character with a lot of the other houses in the neighborhood that have already done this upgrade.
Perfect. What are you making it out of?
It's going to be pressure treated decking and white vinyl railings. And then she's going to stain it in about a year once it's, cured.
Good. Any questions from board members? Pretty straightforward. Questions from members of the audience? No questions?
No.
No, okay. With that, we can close this application.
Mr. Chairman, with regards to application ZBA 2023-101 for an area variance, I move to approve. Where the zoning board has duly advertised and held public hearings, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefits to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variance. Now therefore be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the characteristic of the neighborhood or nearby properties. Yeah, I know what it was. Will be a major improvement to the old steps that were put in the original steps. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. Will be improvement to the concrete of the original needed replacement. The variance is not substantial. It's a 72 square foot increase, 4 foot. The variance will not result in a negative effect to the physical or environmental. An improvement to the property. The difficulty related to the variance was self-created, but it's an improvement that needs to be done. And be it further resolved that based upon 12 findings, the zoning board of appeals hereby approves the variance as presented.
Seconded by Beth. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
And last but not least, we have 2022-080. I'm assuming that's you.
Yes.
Good evening.
Larry Petrone. I am the site director for the T-Mobile facility that's going up. Business address is 348 Clay Road. I'll try to be brief on my statement here, but I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to provide additional insight and clarity regarding our application. We're proud to be bringing up to 1,000 jobs to Henrietta in the greater Rochester area, and we've officially begun our large-scale recruiting efforts. Our position is that all 3 signs are important for the purposes of wayfinding as well as brand advertisement. We've placed a T digit at our front primary entrance on the west elevation and a second larger full T-Mobile sign on the south elevation side, which provides visibility to 390. The proposed third sign, which is a second full T-Mobile sign on the east side of the building, will serve to identify our secondary entrance, which will also be used by a large portion of our employee base and visitors. Due to the triangular shape of our site, we'll have just over half of our employee parking spots located at that secondary entrance to the east, as well as several designated visitor spots. I've got an illustration here that I'd be happy to share of our site plan, as Google Maps does not currently reflect our building or the recently extended service road. The service road we're located on now extends from Clay Road all the way through to Jefferson Road. There's also access to East Henrietta Road via the Greenlight facility. This means we'll have 3 access points to our facility via Clay Road, Jefferson Road, and East Henrietta Road. The third sign will provide some visibility of traffic coming from those access points, as well as brand positioning to southbound traffic on 390. While we expect employees to understand where the entrances are, we also expect an ongoing visitor presence once we open. Our hiring efforts will be significant over the next few years as we ramp up to a full staff, and will include on-site recruiting and hiring events. Those recruiting and hiring events will continue in perpetuity as we expect some consistent level of natural attrition. We'll also welcome guests from across our community for visits and community engagement events. Lastly, I'd call out that even with a third sign, we'd remain under the designated 250 square feet allotment per code. We believe the signage is reasonable relative to the size of the building and tasteful and simplistic in nature. And lastly, I'd highlight that our signage does not pose any known concerns or impedance to neighboring businesses or residential areas. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share that.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that as well. As you probably know, at the last meeting, we had a lot of back and forth and not a lot of information. And there's a lot of competing feelings up here on the board on what what signage is appropriate and what's not for call centers and things of that nature. So that is where we stand. And so we gotta work through this while we have you here. And I do appreciate the extra information. How big? I don't know that I realized that there was access road from the green light side of this.
Yeah, the access road's relatively new. It was extended over the course of the last year as the building has been constructed. So yeah, and I'd be happy to share the visual.
I'd love to see whatever you have to supply, but whatever you bring up here, we have to keep. I can't give it back to you.
Perfectly fine.
That would be great. Please bring up any testimony or information you have. And you have one for each of us, is it? Okay, thank you. Well,
Thank you.
I passed one over. Sharing is caring. So that the road that you have drawn in here in red, I assume is more of what you're referring to with the Jefferson sort of Henrietta Road exit entrance.
Yes, sir, that's correct. So what I've highlighted in red is the new service road that's been installed since the construction began at the site.
And I only drove down Clay.
Same.
Yes. And do you anticipate at any point requesting any other signage?
We haven't currently discussed that. I can't say that we never would, but we have no plans of that as of right now.
And specifically, I'm wondering about Clay Road itself. I didn't think there would be too much trouble seeing it, but like a pole sign or something.
Yeah, I think that's something we would certainly want to consider in the future, but again, it's not anything that we've formally discussed or intend to request as of right now.
So during last month's testimony, there was some discussion about how this third side specifically was going to be needed to direct the employees. Can you explain the other entrances to the building?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two entrances, one in the front, or what we call the front, which would be the south side of the building.
The 390 side.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's actually west. Yeah, west. Thank you. It's a little off kilter there from perfect directional, but yeah, the west is our primary entrance where we put the single T digit right now. That's our primary entrance, but what we call the rear entrance to the north. I'm sorry, to the
east.
Yeah.
Like northeast.
Yes, no, northeast. That's exactly right.
Towards
Thank you.
green light.
That's correct. Yeah, that will be what we would call a secondary entrance, but I expect that to be utilized as heavy as the front primary entrance for both visitors and employees because of the way the parking lot's configured.
It looks about half and half.
It's, yeah, pretty close.
Sorry, is this a standard layout for the T-Mobile call center?
The interior is, the parking lot, not necessarily. So I would say all parking lots are probably somewhat unique based on the site that our other centers are built.
You had mentioned several times a lot of visitors.
Mhm.
What type of visitors come into a call center?
So primarily we'll have potential employment candidates that, as I mentioned, that will be significant and constant over the next few years as we build to a staff of up to 1,000. That would continue on as we will obviously have some kind of natural attrition But we also have visitors. This project has had a lot of visibility to a lot of local elected officials that I expect will come. We'll probably have some media in when we first open. We are also very proud to be kind of a part of the community. So we have community engagement events. For example, we've partnered with Boys and Girls Clubs to bring kids in and kind of spend a career day with us and see what, opportunities might be there. We facilitated, I don't know if you call it trainings, but where we bring, kids from school systems in who are getting close to that age where they're, graduating and entering the workforce. And we facilitated workshops on how to present professionally and how to write a resume and whatnot. So there is kind of an ongoing opportunity for community engagement within the site.
If for some reason the variance is not approved, do you have a backup plan?
We do not.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Yeah, fair question.
You mentioned visitors, and to touch on that just a moment, are you anticipating having reserved visitor parking just because they're going to be two different entrances that they could arrive to, or are you keeping it to your main entrance where maybe perhaps you have like an entry reception type deal?
We will have an entry reception at the front desk, but we will have visitor parking spaces on both the front and the rear entrance. So both entrances will have some visitor parking spaces.
Okay.
If I could just add to the purpose of that. So we have, it really depends on why the visitors are coming in, which entrance we might direct them to. So at the rear of the building, we have a cafe with a stage where we might do some community engagement or speaking type events. We might direct them to that rear entrance. At the front of the building and the main entrance, we have two interview rooms that are pre-security. So they still see security, but they don't need to be fully badged in. So in those instances, we might direct visitors or potential candidates to the front of the building.
So right now, T-Mobile doesn't have any call center in Rochester. You're not doing anything on the one in Jefferson Road.
No. Well, so yeah, we're in the temp site right now, but we're not considered fully operational. So we've been in there since January in the former Sutherland building. We have about 1/3 of what was the Sutherland building. And what I've been doing there over the last year is building up our leadership team from, folks within Rochester, folks from other T-Mobile call centers. So that as we get into the permanent building in early January, we kind of have that core leadership staff as we'll be, we've already begun, as I mentioned, our recruitment efforts. So we are bringing potential candidates into that temporary site right now with employment beginning in January.
Is this the typical layout for a T-Mobile contact center, or is this going to be
The interior is pretty typical. We build them or have refreshed the ones that have been around for quite a while to be very similar on the interior, but the exterior really largely depends on, where it's located and what sort of space. So some have larger parking areas, some have smaller parking areas, depending on what's available at other sites.
But anticipation of, since there are other T-Mobile contact centers, do those centers still have 3 signs themselves? Is this typical of signage of all this type of contact center?
It's for us, it's somewhat typical. We've always felt very strongly about brand presence because of our community engagement and because of our recruitment efforts. So yes, I couldn't tell you exactly how many signs on average, but many of our sites have 2 to 3 signs. Some have 4 if code allows for it.
You mentioned that the call center is going to actually serve more purposes than a call center in terms of like community engagement and whatnot. Is the call center also used as a hub for all your cellular stores?
No, it would not be. We'll welcome those employees in, to visit and see the call center. We have employees that work in our retail stores that have never been in a call center, but they would not have any regular business in the call center.
How many people are on an average shift?
An average shift, so we're busier during the week, Monday through Friday, kind of the opposite of retail. It's up to about 500 once we're fully ramped up. It's up to about 500. I also, of course, in watching through the original hearing, we are not 24/7. So Monday through Friday, our first shift will start 6:50 a.m. And the site will close by 9 p.m. And Saturday and Sundays will be 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Are all the call centers like that?
Most of our call centers are like that. That's correct.
So if something happens at 2 o'clock in the morning, you can get a hold of somebody.
We do have some overseas. We have some overseas presence that takes some of those off-hour calls. We're also closed on the big holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving. So some of that, so there is a help available 24/7, but some of that does go overseas.
All the signs are light up.
Yes, they're all illuminated, and they are on timers to go on at around dusk and go off in the morning.
And the call center is operational 24 hours a day?
No,
Okay.
nope. Yeah, 6:50 a.m. To 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on the weekends.
Okay.
And we heard from the sign rep, what is the purpose of this third sign?
Wayfinding and brand advertising. So wayfinding, again, designating, directing visitors to potentially which entrance, would be of preference to use based on reason for their visit. And certainly as we are, it's a pretty big effort to employ 1,000 people. So we are looking for the brand advertisement as well. We will not be selling products, or it's not a warehouse distribution center. So we're not expecting customers to be there. But certainly from a brand perspective, we absolutely would like the brand advertisement element.
Any other board questions? Any questions? Heather, is there anybody online still?
No, just the folks from the sign company for this application.
Any questions from the sign company? I doubt it.
Or anything you want to add?
I do not have any questions. My name is Tracy. I'm with Triangle Signs, 688 Southeast Clifton Lane in Port St. Lucie, Florida.
Thank you. Nice one. Do we need to? Not table this. We need to have a discussion on this. So let me do this. This is where we might pause for a moment. Thumbs up or down? Come on, do it. You're scaring me.
I'm actually more on the fence because actually.
We have to decide.
Yeah.
It can't be this.
It can't be this.
I think,
With
I feel like we have 4.
the light noting that there's actually another way coming in. Up to this point, I thought there was only this, the entrance was only through Clay Road.
Yeah, we're working to get Google Maps updated.
I would say.
Okay, so you have it written up in the negative or in a positive?
It is written up, written up on the cloud is a no. I have a paper copy ready to go for me. If I were to go for the yes.
Did you say yes or no? It looks like we have the numbers. 1, 2, 3, we have the numbers.
Yeah, so for me, I'm a yes, only because I cannot justify the no.
Okay. Render up. We need a couple minutes for you.
Okay, yeah, I'll write fast.
And it was Larry, right?
Yes, sir.
So please bear with us if you heard we have a few issues with our computer.
Not a problem. No rush.
But we'll close this in a minute.
How many call centers does T-Mobile have across the country?
This will be the 20th.
20?
Yes, sir.
And then overseas too?
We do have some, yeah, those are not our direct employees. Those are partners. But yes, we do have some overseas.
Are all of them similar size?
Not necessarily. They range. We'll be on the larger medium size. Our largest is in Charleston, South Carolina, that will fully staffed could employ 1,300. We'll be about $1,000.
Just out of curiosity, not related to the variance, were you a customer inside of Sutherland? Were they supporting you before they moved?
Interestingly, no. So Sutherland has a global presence and they're actually a global partner. But no, so we have relationships with Sutherland, but not in this building.
Yeah, it's just interesting to me because I used to do work with them, right? They used to support us. Is that they've left, right? And then I've had conversations with them recently, and a lot of the feedback is they don't have enough demand for stateside call center talent.
Yeah, it is interesting. And actually, as we are interviewing candidates now, we have a lot of what's left of Sutherland's employees in Rochester showing up.
Is this, so in terms of the call center, is this the only standalone building or are there, or like retrofits where they're in, strips?
I believe all of our 20 now are standalone. There might be one or two that are in strips. I know we've tried to move away from that just for logistical purposes. So majority, if not all, are standalone. But several of them have gone into old Kmart's, BJ's, which carry a host of retrofit. But so very excited that we're ground up build.
And it looks beautiful.
It's gorgeous. Yeah, we'd love to have you by to see it.
Those are pretty much all 20 centers are like virtual. So I were to call one time, I guess somebody in Charleston or another time it could be, it's basically the best call routing.
No, so we've moved to a model called Total Experience where we will support when we're fully operational or operational enough to have support the capacity later in 2024. We'll pick up upstate New York and Connecticut. So what's great about that model is customer could talk to the same rep more than once calling in, but we get to kind of know the customer base specific to that regional part of the country.
But you can cover each other's areas in case.
That's correct. Yes, exactly. And overflow situations, capacity pinches. Yep.
Natural disasters or anything like that.
I'm sorry?
For natural disasters and stuff.
That's exactly right. Yeah, if a site goes down, we might pick up traffic from our Oakland main site if they have, a bad storm or something to that effect. That's correct.
When would one use the basketball court? I was just curious.
Anytime they want. So we've got because of the way what the amenities we have in our facilities, we have a lot of employees that come in well before their shift starts. Some utilize on breaks, some will stay after their shift. We also, as part of our rewards and recognition, we have 2 barbecue grill areas outside on the patio as well. So we might be able to reward, hey, your team did fantastic last month. You get a 3-hour on the clock opportunity to go barbecue with your team out there. So yeah,
I was just curious.
So it's a very fair question. Yeah.
Do all of them have areas like that?
Yes, all of them have amenities. Call center life can be difficult. So we really try to take the edge off. Which is why we don't even call it a call center. We call it a customer experience center because we want to differentiate ourselves from that more Sutherland-like experience. So fitness center, theater, physical game room, digital game room, the exterior patio, just many amenities to really try to kind of build from a cultural experience perspective for our employees.
I noticed you didn't say go-karts.
No go-karts, unfortunately. That might be the next permit we seek around the parking lot.
Automatically approved.
Awesome.
Mr. Chairman, we're all set.
We're all set. Okay. With that, we can close this application.
Mr. Chairman, with regard to application number 2023-080 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held a public hearing, has considered all relevant information, and has considered a potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variances. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. The sign is in character with the surrounding businesses. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. The variance as described by the applicant cannot be achieved by other means. The variance requested is not substantial. The sign will not create a substantial change to the property or neighborhood. The variance will not have a negative effect on the physical or environmental conditions. It will not create negative impacts. The difficulty relating to the variance was self-created. While the desired variance was self-created, it does not negatively impact the neighborhood or property. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the zoning board of appeals hereby approve the variance as presented.
Second. Seconded by John. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
With that, the motion carries.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Good evening.
Have a great evening.
Now I want to write a go.
And with that, we can close the meeting at 8:06. If my eyes are right.
Yep.